Welcome to this video of the OpenStudyBuilder. I'm going to present you today the complete overview of the graphical user interface, so what can be done, what functionality is available in version 0.4. You can see the current version under Help and About, and here you see which version is implemented. You can start the OpenStudyBuilder either by using the sandbox system where you have a URL, or you can also install it locally and then you have a local host and then you have a local instance of the OpenStudyBuilder. If you want to know how to get access to the sandbox system or how to install it locally, all information are available on our project homepage. Just go to openstudybuilder.com and you will see the complete documentation. At the front page, we do have a short introduction. So what is the project type? We are a COSAC, so a CBDIS Open Source Alliance project. You can contact us via email, via sessions we have, or you can also join Slack to ask questions there. Our repository you can also find here. So if you click the link, for example, you see the project description, which is the homepage you can see here, or the solution itself. In the solution, you have the complete source code, and very important, in the README file, you also have instructions on how to implement the OpenStudyBuilder locally. You do have a lot of information here, like for example, a very useful area is the resources. Here you can check, for example, a flyer, a poster, or simple demo slides. Also, all videos are linked here. Also very nice is the events, so if you want to join any of our upcoming events, they are listed here. Finally, we also have our guides. For example, if you would like to check out how to get access to the sandbox system, you can just click Environments. The first point is a sandbox environment, so you simply just have to send an email and then you can get access to these URLs. The URLs are the application itself, like this here, but as well the API and much more tools are available. And finally down here there's also instructions how you can install it on a local Docker installation. Like I have done it here. For this you can see the same application running on my local screen. Let's now dive into the functionality of the OpenStudyBuilder. There are two main parts available, a study part and a library part. In the library, you're going to maintain the standards. For example, you do have the code lists available. In the dashboard, you see an overview how many catalogs are loaded and how many packages. You can browse the catalogs, you can browse specific ones, like if you want to know for send, the study type, you can just search. And because study is a very often used term, I'm going to use type. And somewhere there is this send study type. If I would like to see the terms, I can say show terms. And then here I can see all the study types. If it's an extensible code list, I can also add terms. Under the CT package, I can also see differences. For example, if I want to see the difference from send from this version to this version, I can also say show me differences. Like I want to see the differences of the last, oh, that's the first, of the last two versions, so from today and the last time. And then I can see all what has changed. Also very important is next to the control terminology CDISC packages, there can also be standard code lists like we do have for Adam or for Define XML and so on. So these are all sponsor specific code lists like the objective level or a visit type. Also here, if you would like to see the terms, you can click show terms and then you can see these things. You also see the status. So in this case, these code lists are all final. But you can also add a new term and then your code list will become a draft and you can also develop it. Next to the controlled code list, there are also dictionaries available, for example, SNOMED. Medra is of course not loaded because this is a paid dictionary. but you can also, for example, check out UCOM and so on. So with this upper part, you do have really the core management of standards, meaning standard code lists and standard dictionaries. The next points are the concepts. In the background for the OpenStudyBuilder, there's a graph database, meaning there are links available. So it's not a relational database, but really a graph database consisting of nodes and relationships. This is also reflected in our concepts. Of course, the display here is again in a table form, but in the background, everything is stored as a graph. The most important things are our activity concepts. So these are what is also mentioned as biomedical concept in the CDISC area. For example, we call it biomedical concept, activity concept. You can also read a lot about these concepts, what is in the background in our project homepage. So if you go under guides, you do see the activity concept, and here it's in general explained what is the biomedical concept and how it's related to the OpenStudyBuilder activity concept and how these activities are used. So like here we can, for example, if we search for height, there's also a concept for the body measurement height. If you would like to see it, you can click here, some details. So this is the YAML representation. The final goal is also to have the YAML in the kind of the way CDISC is requiring it with the Cosmos YAML. So Cosmos is a new CDISC initiative. Currently it's not fully implemented because there are some mappings we have to perform which are not finalized yet. These activities are grouped, so you can also go by grouping, like for example in the general area, and then there are the body measurements, and here you see, for example, our height, and there are also weight. As we can see here, some of these things are retired, so it's really also version management is implemented, which is of course extremely important, and the linking specifically is also to a very detailed version of these single items. For the activities, so this is whatever you want to do in your studies, you have to have as a defined activity. If there is an activity not available which you need for your new study, you can also, the idea is that you can create requested activities, because by now only activities which are in the final state can be used in studies. Because of standards management, it could take a little time between I need this in my study until the standards manager have approved this activity. And for this, as a user, the idea is to implement requested activities, so I can request my new activity. This draft activity I can already use in my study, and then after the standards manager has made this activity to final, my study can then link to this final activity. Then we do have also a unit area. So here you can see, for example, like the different units, like weight, the weight unit LB, for example. You can see what is the corresponding UCOM unit, what is the control terminology unit, is it convertible, is it an SI unit, is it US conventional, what's the typical dimension, and so on. And you can also see the conversion factor. Another very interesting part is the CRFs, and the CRFs, you have to be aware that the CRFs are currently only supported on library level. So you can create a standard CRF. We are working on the study adoption so that the CRFs can be also defined and selected on study level. We also have a nice guide on the CRFs on our homepage, so under openstudybuilder.com guides CRF. You do also have a small video. This video has been performed on version 0.2. By now there are also additional enhancements implemented. But you can get a very nice overview about how this is working. Just to briefly show you what you can do, so you can define a standard template, you can define single forms. Sometimes, unluckily, there are some errors, which is really stupid, but this is a draft, this is a 0.4 version, and we are working on these items. I figured also out that sometimes it's only related to the sandbox systems and sometimes it's on the local environment. So in the local environment, if I'm looking into the CRF part, I can see here the forms. For example, there's a little science form. Then there can be item groups. These terms are really strongly related to our ODM standard. So in ODM, the item groups and forms is it what you also will see here displayed. And finally, I also can see single items. For example, the date of informed consent and so on. In the CRF tree, I can view my template and all the forms. Like here I have added a vital signs and the blood pressure, and I also added an adverse event page. And here with groups, I can add, for example, new groups, which is what I'm not doing now. Then I finally also can see my CRF, and this is pretty cool. So I can say I want to see the complete template and the first one, and I would like to include also the STTM annotations, and this I can then load, and it will be displayed here. You can also download this as ODM XML file. This is very nice because ODM XML, this is our standard, so this is the way how you can create your CRF, provide the ODM file to your eCRS system. There's also an opportunity to import ODM, but this is not through this graphical user interface. You can also export it as PDF, so if you would like to just see it, then you can see this as PDF file. And the compounds part is just listing which compounds do we have. You can add new compounds. So this is what the concept management is. To best support the end-to-end protocol, the OpenStudyBuilder implements currently very well the protocol automation part. And for the protocol automation, we often do need human-readable sentences, and we still would like to have links in these sentences. For example, for objectives, we have invented objective templates, which can be reused and which still contain core information. So for example, this heart failure objective template is to compare the effect of a compound relative to comparator on activity instance. So this is a sentence which can be used in the protocol where these orange parts will be replaced by actual compounds, comparators, or activities, or in this case, an activity instance. This really enables us that we can search the objectives for all objectives using a specific compound, or if you're using objectives for specific instance activities and so on. And this really enables us still, even though it's a human readable sentence, we do have core information which are machine readable. So I know it's linked to a compound and it's linked to a comparator and so on. And these we don't only have for objectives, but we also have it for general endpoints. So whether it's an occurrence of an activity or the number of events. There are also time frame templates or inclusion and exclusion criteria, like age or above. And also very important, the activity templates. So you can really have here long texts, which very generic items like a visit name, and this you can reuse from study to study also with different values. So next, so when this is the general template, we do have actual study instantiations. These you can see under the instantiations. For example, you can see that we do have a study to compare the effect of insulin relative to metformin on 24 hours urine collection. So this is an instance, so here we do have, this objective is used in one of the studies. These instances you can also see for endpoints, for time frames, and also for criteria. There are some more parts available, like template collection, data exchange standards, and also the list. Most of them are under construction, but for example, you can also already see the general clinical metadata in a tabular format. Let's now have a look in the study part. So study management are done under studies, and you can also see here a different area. So for example, for the protocol process, you can see first you have to select or add a new study, then you define the structure, the purpose, the population, the interventions, and finally the activities. So this is all what you would need for the protocol process. Under Manage Studies, you can see what studies are available. The best study is the CDISC-DEF0. So this is what we are going to select. I already selected it, which you can see up here. Then I see a brief overview of my study, but really the important stuff is after you select your study or create your study, you have to define it. And this you do under the Define. You get a quick overview, which is under construction. You start with a study title. So this is typically what's coming into the protocol on the intro page. So what's the title of your study? You might also want to use a short title. We can enter the registers. We can enter properties, like the study type. What is important when you edit or add this information here, like the study type, this is controlled by the CDISC control terminology. So behind this selection area here, it's linked to the control terminology and stored as a graph database also with a link to this version of this control terminology and this concrete term. So I don't want to change anything here. You can also modify the study attributes, like what's the control type and so on. Very important is the study structure. So what are my study arms? What are the branches? What are the cohorts? As you can see here, you can also specify a color, which is used to generate then a nice graphic at a later time point. The epochs, the elements like screening, treatment, follow-up. You can define the visits, which visits are planned, and you can also have a timeline preview, so which visits do you have planned. Then there is a design matrix, so like what are my treatments, screening, follow-up, and so on. If you do have, you can also have disease milestones. In this study we don't have. The next point is the study population. So what's your minimum age, maximum age, and so on. You can define your study criteria. What are your inclusion criteria? And here we start to utilizing the library concepts we have set up, so the templates. So we do have a criteria template, and here we can create concrete implementations of a general sentence. So we have age, 18 years or above, but we're still linking to this 18 years age. Then we do have the exclusion criteria, and if you have some other criteria, this is where you can define it. The next part is the study interventions. So this gives you a quick overview about what's available. So you can define its compound, dosing, and other interventions. The study purpose, what are your objectives, endpoints. And here again, we are using the templates like the study endpoints. So we do have a specific objective, and we are using these specific templates. Yeah. Very important is also the activities. So here you really defined, and for this we do have these activity concepts available, and we really do have a very long list of possible activities. And here on your study level, you can define which activities is it what you want to have. You can add them. You can also see it in the detailed flowchart. For example, if you expand the table, next to the fact, you can see which visits are available. You can also select and unselect what do you want to display. For example, sometimes I only want to see the groups, for example, end of study. And sometimes I really want to see the detailed activities. So I could decide, do I want to display the physical examination or do I want to display the cardiovascular system, abdomen, and so on. So here you can really define what is important to know in your protocol with the visibility. So this will export then the main or the sub-information. You do see the protocol flowchart. This is also what you can then export to Word. This is what you can include in the protocol. And here, as we've seen, only those things which have an I specified will be displayed. So for end of study, we only display end of study, whereas in randomization, we also displayed the subgroup randomized. So if you go back to our specification area, here you will see I use the randomized. If I just don't want to see this, I can just click it. And when now my protocol flow chart is recreated, this randomization sub-line is going to go away. So with this, you really can define the granularity of the display of the protocol flow chart on what to include and what not to include. If you would have activity instructions, they would also be available. So these are currently only maintained for the height, so that you can also already see the instructions for the activities. So this is how you define your study. The terminology is currently not, this is under construction. Defining the studies is not everything. Of course, it's very important that we can view what we have defined. So view specifications is meant that we can see what we finally need. So it starts with a standardization plan, but this is currently also under construction. But as mentioned, the OpenStudyBuilder is really at a very good stage to automate the protocol, so you can see and export everything you need for the protocol in this area. Whatever you see here, so this is just the graphical user interface, you can also access all this information through the API. So you can see on the title page, this is what you would typically include. Then we can generate the flowchart, which can be then imported into the protocol. We do see an overview table for the objective templates. And this is really, the idea is that you can really here see everything what you have, and then you do have another tool to create your protocol automatically. The study design is even a picture. For this, we have defined also colors, for example, for the treatment and follow-up period and so on. So if you want to change the colors, you can do it under the specifications. You also see a study population overview, so all the criteria you have entered, the study interventions, and of course the study activities. So this is also under constructions, but the study activities you see in the flowchart. The CRF specifications are mentioned already. This is under construction, so CRF is currently implemented on the library level, where you can also do an ODM export and import. On study level, this will come. Study disclosure is also under constructions, but what you can see is already, so what you also can see is we are planning the CTR ODM XML standard to have this exportable. We also plan at a point somewhere that we do have study SDTM specifications, but this is really going to come later on. What we already have is the study design datasets. So if you would like to see your trial arm or the trial elements, the visits, inclusion, exclusion criteria. So by specifying all the protocol information, you automatically also create your trial summary datasets, which is really nice because then you don't have to recreate them. And these are really, and this is one of the main goals and the main advantages for end-to-end processing. By defining one thing, the other is just available. So you don't have to redo the same thing, you don't have to copy and paste, and as it's all a graph database, it's all linked. If you change it at one place, it will be changed at the other place as well. Yes, finally, you can also, under View Listings, see what we have planned. So of course, we would also like to have the define XML, like for example, generated with a Pinnacle tool or with a clinical standards toolkit and so on. But these are mainly things which are under constructions, but you can see there will be more and more functionality added. I hope you have now a very good overview about the functionality of the OpenStudyBuilder. So it's really meant to automate all your processes. So whatever you need by a metadata repository, this is under the library part. Whatever you need as a study definition repository, this is you can find under the study parts. So it's really meant to define all your standards, to define your studies, to automate all your follow-up processes, meaning the protocol automation, and then further on the CRF generation and so on. So the status is currently that way. It's currently supporting very well the protocol generation, and the CRF part is really starting up. The trial domains are also automatically coming out of the protocol automation, so this is already available. A lot of additional stuff is developed on, and also very important because the core is really automation. So whatever you click here, so the way you're creating new code lists, sponsor-specific code lists, syntax templates, whatever you do here, this can also be automated through standard interfaces, a so-called API. We do have many interfaces, so there are many endpoints. So for example, the API, you can also have a check out the API directly in our sandbox environment. And here you really see all the things you can do. Like you can work with ODM templates, but also you can create studies and so on. All the functionality you do by clicking, you can automate by utilizing the API. So this really enables end-to-end automation. If you have any questions, you can follow up on our project homepage. You can contact us through email, through our regular sessions, or you can also join the Slack channel where you can directly ask questions. Please also check out all our guides. This list is going to be embedded more and more with more and more information, but this really gives you a very good overview, for example, about the visit structure, the activity concepts, the study structure, the CRF design code lists, and so on. With this, I hope you're interested in the OpenStudyBuilder, and we are looking forward for any collaborations.